Welcome to This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, brought to you by Riverside Auto Group and produced by WLAQ Sports. Each week, we bring you insight, analysis, interviews, and our predictions for the week's matchups around the Northwest Georgia area. Here are your hosts.
And here we are, Ian. It is time to kick off another edition, and Grayson, of course, of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. And believe it or not, folks, we are already getting ready for Week 3 edition of the show. Can you believe that we're already at Week 3?
It always goes by fast. Before you know it, we'll be talking playoffs.
Oh, indeed. But we'll start off the show today. Of course, one of the things that we may do if we have a few minutes at the end of the show, we had Week 0 of college football last week. This week is Week 1 with a full slate of games, which is super exciting. I know the young man across the table right now, he's smiling ear to ear when he hears that because he's got plans coming up at noon tomorrow.
Oh, I see. You didn't want to go back and watch the Jaguars and Falcons again?
No, I did not. I heard you mention me on the radio, though.
Yeah.
You told me I'm not going to be able to see Trevor Lawrence play. I did, in fact, see Trevor Lawrence play.
I was shocked. We were calling the game, and I said, man, Trevor Lawrence has gone 7 for 7 and scored a touchdown. They actually played him, so congratulations. I'm sure it was a rousing game.
It definitely was, and I get to go watch Georgia whoop up on some Tigers this weekend.
Well, I think we both would agree with you that that's probably exactly what you're going to get to see in that particular game. I think I've only been to maybe one Falcons preseason game, and I was lucky in that they were playing the Patriots, and it's the one and only time I ever had the opportunity to see Tom Brady play in my life, and he came out for like a series and played a few plays, and then they took him out. Yeah. But I can say I saw Tom Brady in person, which was kind of cool.
Yeah,
otherwise, those are, I guess, at this point in time, those are the only reasons why you would go to a preseason game. You do get a glimpse every now and then, like you did last week, of greatness.
And he got to see now Charger Tyler Heineke out there running around.
That's exactly
That was
right.
pretty awesome, huh? I mean, I think they scored 0 points, right?
Yeah, that was – they may have had like the 4th and 5th string in, but, I mean, that game was just –
a preseason NFL game is exactly what
definition
it was.
of what it is.
That's right. You'll have a much more exciting time tomorrow. I think Clemson hangs with your boys for a half, and then Georgia covers and wins by 3 touchdowns.
I think Beck just demolishes that defense. The linebackers and the D-line, some of the best in the country, but it's Georgia we're talking about here. It's SEC ball. I mean, don't get much better than that.
All right, poor little Clemson.
Well, we've delayed this long enough, but now we get to the best part of the show for this week and talk about the results from last week, and it was basically old guys versus young guy, and old guys won last week.
Let me get one
Boom,
of those.
A little fist bump on that.
Yeah.
Ian and I both picked Allmerchie. That was our lone difference that we had last week to beat Ridgeland, and they did beat Ridgeland. It was a close game. Came back, won that game, so congratulations to Coach Ballou and the Allmerchie Indians, and congratulations to the old guys, because we got one on the young guy last week.
So where do we stand? I think the oldest guy.
Yeah, well,
I think he's got the lead.
Mm-hmm. That is very accurate, and on both accounts, I'll own that. But of course, right now, both Ian and I last week went 8-1. Grayson was 7-2. The one that we all missed was Northwest Whitfield over North Murray, and they won that pretty handily. It sounded like.
Right, and I guess like I said this last week, I was like, I'm just going off the assumption Dalton is Dalton. Maybe Dalton is not Dalton this year, because I did not see that one coming.
No, and Dalton, I think they got beat pretty badly again last week too. So I think we're learning a little bit there of that situation, which I hate to see, but it is what it is. So we both went 8-1, Ian and I, and then Grayson was 7-2. And our overall standings right now, I'm at the top, 13-3, and then Ian and Grayson are tied at 12-4. So obviously a one-game lead is very fragile, and I know this. And today I've got a couple of games where I might be taking a chance or two. So you guys may get some opportunity today. We'll see if that transpires as we go along throughout the rest of the show. But real quick, we'll just run down the list of games that we're going to be talking about today, and we'll start with Central Christian Crusaders at Unity Lions. Unity's playing their football games this year out at Coosa. They worked out a deal with them, and that really's worked out, I think, pretty well, and they're excited about that. Cherokee Christian Warriors are going to be out at H.A. Lindsey Stadium at the campus of Almerchi. It's going to be the Coosa Eagles going over to Woodard Tuggle to take on the Model Blue Devils, and those teams haven't played in a couple of years, so it's good to see that back on the regular season schedule. You've got the Temple Tigers at Tryon Bulldogs up there at Sam R. McCain. It's going to be rocking, and I see a lot of people putting things on the internet of how they feel like this game right here could be one of the more interesting ones of the weekend.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to get your guys' take on that as we go throughout the show. The Darlington Tigers are hitting the road for the first time, heading up to Ridgeland to take on the Panthers. We'll be with them for that. Very excited about that. The Pepperell Dragons are headed up in that similar direction up to the Dalton area and taking on the Christian Heritage Lions. The Daresville Tigers are going to have their hands full playing over at Cass. Westminster Wildcats are playing at Calhoun at the Reeve. The Cedartown Bulldogs hit the road for Alexander to take on the Cougars. And our game of the weekend.
It's big. It's bad. Two of the best programs in the state. Rome Wolves opening their season because of the bus accident causing them to miss the Corky Kill against Carrollton at Carrollton. So it's Reed versus King, Wolves versus Trojans. It's going to be a heck of a ball game.
It's going to be epic. Can't wait to talk about that one at the end of the show. So you'll want to hear and get our analysis and prediction on that. And not only that, we've got a special guest that's going to give us some insight into that too.
Yes, we are. We were fortunate enough to catch John Reid for a few minutes yesterday. He called in and was kind enough to answer our questions concerning the matchup. So we will hear from him later in the show. Usually we get both coaches, but Coach King was unavailable to chat with us. So
that was a bummer. I was looking forward. Never had the opportunity to talk to him. We were looking forward to that, but for whatever reason couldn't make that work out. And I'm sure it probably had something to do with because it's also the GPB game this week, and I'm sure media requests have been bountiful. But thankfully, Coach Reid was able to handle our request, and we got him on. It's a great interview. So
it is.
Look forward to sharing that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, with all that said, I guess we will do what coaches often say, and we will keep the main thing the main thing. You guys got your chin straps buckled?
I'm ready, baby. Let's go.
All right. Well, we're going to tee this one up. We're going to let Grayson pick this first one right out of the gate today. He's got some interesting information about Central Christian, and they are heading over to Coosa, where Unity plays their home games. So let's hear about that Central Christian at Unity game, Grayson.
So this game actually dates back to last year, and in the regular season, we saw Unity actually lose to Central Christian, I believe 44-36 at the beginning of the season. And then later on in the playoffs, Unity laid the absolute hammer on them, 58-20. So they got that feeling of revenge last year already underneath their belt. And maybe, just maybe, Central gets it this year. However, I just think the talent disparity there will be apparent. We know Unity, they got guys everywhere. Line of scrimmage, of course, Evan Whiteside, just crazy rushing numbers. I just don't think Central get their revenge. Unity's playing at home at Coosa. I think Carter Patterson, monster for Central Christian. I mean, he just fills up that stat sheet, offense and defense. He's their leading tackler for loss. I mean, he could maybe make things interesting being that one-man wrecking crew, but I'm still going to take Unity in this one.
All right. He had me thinking he was going the other way there for a second. None of us has picked against Unity this year so far. Will it happen today? Ian, you're next.
It's not going to come from this seat. The defending champs got off to a good start last week with a 26-14 win. They've got the Crusaders at home this week. You got Evan Whiteside running all over the place. Ethan Whiteside pancake blocking this great defensive player that Grayson's talking about. I think it's a dominant performance at home. I think Unity runs away.
I happen to agree with you on this, and you guys have kind of covered the personnel, and I know this is something that we talk a lot about on this show, but the coaching staff that you have at Unity, they're going to have these guys ready and prepared as any coaching staff that you're going to find around. Obviously, the head honcho there is David Humphreys. He's coached at the high school level at many different classifications in GHSA, now in GAPPS. He's coached professional football. He's been a college coach. The man knows how to teach kids to play football. There's no question about that. And he's got a great supporting cast. One guy I'll mention we've talked to a lot on WLAQ over the years, and that's Jeremy Green, who is the head coach out at Almerchi. And he brings a lot of experience to the table as well as the rest of the guys on that staff. So they've got the dudes. They've got the coaches. And it's going to be hard any matchup that you look at this year to pick against the Unity Lions. They should have an excellent season as long as they can keep, enough guys healthy and that sort of thing. And anytime you're dealing, with football, doesn't matter the size of your roster, the health status of everybody is definitely of paramount importance. But when you've got small rosters like these schools have, then it's even more amplified. So you want to keep everybody healthy. But at the end of the day, I like unity in this game.
Yeah, and if you don't have much going on Friday night, there are options here. But talking to Coach Cannon in the preseason, they've also renovated the facilities out there at Coosa. Here
they got a light
really,
show
really
now.
Sharp. Yeah. So you can check out the Eagles or you can check out the Lions. They're pretty much playing every Friday at Coosa.
And one of the things that really struck me, and I know you too, when we talked to Coach Humphreys, was how appreciative that the Unity community is about having the opportunity to play those games out there. And he wanted to make sure that that's something that he talked about. And so it's great to see those schools partner up like that on something like that.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. All right. Well, we've covered that, I think, pretty well. Let's move on to the next game. This is going to be the Cherokee Christian Warriors. And we mentioned to you going to H.A. Lindsey Stadium at Almerchi High School to take on the Indians. You want to start with that one, Ian?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the Indians, if we're talking about Almerchi 6 years ago, 10 years ago, there's no way anybody at this table was picking them to go on the road and beat Ridgeland. Now, I know Ridgeland had lost LFO the week before. They're not the team they were, 8 years ago. But Almerchi just wasn't in the right mindset or place to find a way to win ball games. And you saw it with Coach Green, and Coach Blue's come in and put his stamp on this program. They're starting to understand how to band together and get the W. Big comeback win on the road last week. I think that builds their confidence. When you talk about the Cherokee Christian Warriors, this is a team that was 4-0 in their region last year, 7-4 overall. But they play in the
GAPPS, Georgia Association of Private and Parochial Schools.
I had to tee it up for you because I would have messed that up. So thank you, Matt.
I'm surprised I didn't, to be honest with you.
You nail it every time, man. It's impressive. So this is a smaller school. Almerchi's at home. They're coming off of a big comeback win. I think that the culture of winning has been installed at Almerchi. They're going to have some tough games later in the year. They've got to win this one. They do.
I'm going to agree with you on this. Blaine Ragland was 8 of 13 in the air for 77 yards, had an interception, and rushed 18 times for 55 yards at Ridgeland. Pretty good game there. Didn't have a tremendous amount of offensive production in that effort, but the defense kept them in the game, and they just kept grinding. And I think that's what you're going to see is one of the hallmarks of this Indians team. It may not always be pretty, but the effort is going to be there, and these kids are going to keep competing. And like you say, that was in my notes as well about the confidence aspect. Once you know that you can win, I wouldn't say it gets easier, but it definitely helps you in that pursuit to have that level of confidence and not overconfidence, which I think Almerchi's got a good balance there of knowing where they're at. So I think this is a winnable game for them if they do the things they need to do and check all the boxes, and I think they will. So I'm with you on this one. I take Almerchi. And we will go over to Grayson. How do you see this one? Are you going to take a different approach to this pick?
So Cherokee Christian, the past few years, they've been a GAPS team, which unlike a lot of other teams for football, they're 11-man. So they actually get opportunities to play against these GHSA teams, and they actually just played Christian Heritage, which we see Pepperell going up there this week. So Almerchi, they're coming off a win at Ridgeland. I think I just decided to be cute with that one. I don't know. So I'm going to apologize to Almerchi for that one. Cherokee Christian really have, based on some of the film that I've seen, they really have two guys that dominate that offense, and then there's a drop-off after that. I don't exactly remember their names, but I remember it's a quarterback and the tight end. They are the two guys that will carry this offense, and other than that, there's a massive difference. So with that being said, I do not have a difference here. I'm going to take Almerchi at home coming off of a solid comeback win at Ridgeland.
All right, so there you have it. We all agree on that one.
Yes, we do.
So we move on to our next pick here of the show, and this will be the last one before we take a break, our first break of the show. And this is going to be one that I'm glad is back on the schedule, especially with the way things have been going for the Coosa Eagles so far and excitement building with that program. And Model has been very consistently good for the last several years. under Jeff Honeycutt. So this could be an interesting matchup and a classic series. Let's talk a little bit about that before we move into our picks, series history-wise. Coosa leads at 38-21. The first recorded matchup on the historian site was back in 1960. So this one dates back even older than the old guys on this side of the table. But they haven't played the last 2 seasons. Model won the previous 3 in the series. All right, we got a model high school student in here. I think we should start on that side of the table and see what he thinks about it. What you think, Ian?
I agree.
All right, we'll head over there. Grayson, you get this one first, young man.
I'm going to be so honest. I did not know that Coosa leads us all time and wins against us. I mean, that's
By a pretty large margin. 17 games. Yeah.
17?
38-21.
38-21.
I thought he said 38-31. My gosh, 17 years of winning. Holy crap. So, yeah, Coosa, they're coming off of their first win of the Cannonair in the regular season. They beat Southeast Whitfield 32-0. I mean, arguably should have been more. Gordon Central did, in fact, beat them 62-0. But that's still a good win there for Coosa. And we just saw a model. They didn't have a chance in that game. I'm sorry, but 41-0 at halftime. I mean, there's just not a lot you can do with that. Model, there were some bright spots in that game. Colin Watson was one of the bigger keystone pieces there for Model in that game, being in the receiving game and the rushing game. But overall, Cass just completely outmatched them. Models, we're already battle tested. I mean, we already have an overtime win against Sonoraville, big grow-up game. Cat, we've already had that tremendous game at Cass where we just got throttled. So, honestly, I'm just going to take my own school with this one.
All right. So he's going with Model. And, Ian, how do you see this one, sir?
Yeah, a nice start for Coosa. The 32-0 win over that outmatched Raiders team from Southeast Whitfield that has now been outscored 94-0 in their 2 games. Just a little side note for you. Model gets their first setback last week. We knew that was just 2 different leagues, 2 different levels. Cass is really good, so I don't think you take any negatives away from that effort. Coosa has some good skill players. They also have a heck of a linebacker named Harrison East. If you've never watched this kid play, he's all over the ball all the time, and I think defensively, this is going to be a low-scoring game, a hard-hitting game. Haven't played in 2 years. I mean, I'd imagine these boys don't like each other too much. I think it's going to be really low-scoring. Home field advantage is why I'm going to go with the Blue Devils to pull it out. But I wouldn't be surprised if Coosa pulls the upset.
Yeah, the 2 things, and you touched on this a little bit already, Ian, when we talked to Coach Cannon preseason, that he pointed out that he was most excited about was the team speed, those skill guys that he has, and also how tough those kids are on that football team. Josh Turner, I think that's how you say his name, had 159 yards and a couple of touchdowns, only 11 carries in their previous game. So obviously you expect that that's a young man that's going to get the rock in this game. Can Model kind of key on him a little bit, slow him down a little bit? Certainly one of the hallmarks of a Jeff Honeycutt team has been defense, and I think that defense is going to show up in this game. So I'm with you. I do think it'll be low scoring. I think it'll be a close game. But at the end of the day, even though I do think Coosa's taken some steps forward and will have a good season, I think Model has been in that trajectory a bit longer and are a little bit further ahead in terms of where they are. And I think Model's going to win this game at home, but I do think it'll be interesting.
And I need to ask our insider here.
Sure.
Because when we talk about these cross-county rivalries, when I was growing up and we would play, there was smack talk, but it had to travel by pigeon carrier, And now you've got social media. And I remember you mentioning last week that y'all were talking smack to Cass. So or there was a Barstool account where there was smack talk traveling across the enemy lines here. So is there any smack talk going on between the Eagles and Devils this week?
Yes, the Barstools have posted on Instagram already. So there's a little bit of smack talk going on. I remember Coosa Barstool posted something. They were like, it showed some of the funny faces that the players made. They were like kind of confused. And the caption was, "Me when I see Models favored by 28 points." So there is.
Okay. Dude, I bet Coach Honeycutt, I bet these coaches can't stand social media.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's great. That's great. That's
when
good to
you
know.
brought it up, I'm like, oh, please let's be careful what we share about this, because I've seen some of it, and
okay.
Most of the time it's in fun, but I've seen a couple where it truly has gone too far,
right?
And so hopefully, and I'm not saying anything specifically. It wasn't either one of these two teams, but man, wow.
Well, I expect it to be a hard hitting.
No doubt, coaches don't love that. Yeah, and then one of the things about that is not just because of the things that might not be in the best of taste. Why you want to poke the bear,
right?
And give anybody any extra motivation to come at you? I wouldn't want to do that. I just want to get out there and buckle the chin strap and get out there and hit somebody and do what you got to do. Let that do the talking, right?
Right.
But hey, what do I know?
That's
I'm
the
just a
world
guy
we
with
live
a
in.
microphone talking on this show. Well, let's see. We've covered the games we're going to for this segment. So what we're going to do now is take a break. And this is This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, where we pick the games and give you our analysis for what it's worth. And then also we got a game of the week at the end of the show where we're going to have Coach John Reid from Rome talking about their trip to Carrollton. So a lot to come. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a couple of moments.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
All right, we'd like to welcome the WLA crew back to the show here with us. It's This Week in Northwest
The WLA
Georgia.
crew?
Yeah.
That's the first time I've heard it been put that way.
Man.
I kind of like it.
Yeah. Well, welcome back to This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. Got Grayson Atkins and Matt Davis with me. I'm Ian Griffin, and we're picking some games. We got a big one on the docket here to launch this next segment. The Temple Tigers at the Trine Bulldogs. And you guys seem like you're tossing this one up in the air a little bit.
I've seen a lot of people online talking about this game, and I've seen a couple of sources that I trust their opinions about stuff like this. Think this is really going to be one of the games to watch this week in terms of competitive nature and it being difficult to predict what you think the end result is going to be. So I'm curious to see if we have any differences here. I kind of have a feeling we won't, but we're going to find out. So who wants to lead us off with this one? Any takers there?
I'll jump in. Let's go.
Ian's going to take this one first.
Temple's gotten better and better as the years gone on. You used to see Temple on the schedule, or we'd have them in the picks, and it was like, oh, check the other team. No, I don't have to think too much about this. But this program has gotten better and better and better. But what Coach Sean Patrick has built at Trine, this game being at Trine, where they are on top of you and in your ear, they're probably using the internet to get personal information on the punter so that when he's back there trying to kick, they can scream in his ear hole. And, I mean, it is an intimidating environment.
I'll just say this, and I probably shouldn't, but if you take the Barstool conversation that we were having, it's that in person times however many people are at the game. It is intense.
It is. You bet that. You better be ready to mentally block out the noise that you're going to get from the Trine faithful, and they're going to give Temple an earful. We know it. But outside of that, you got a 4-year starter at quarterback. You've got plenty of experience on the line of scrimmage. We know that's where games are won. Yes, Toby Maddox is gone, but these guys have the dudes, and he's got Logan Stokes to throw to, the Willingham kid out there on the outside. I just think Trine will find a way to pull away with this one late and win.
All right. We're going to go over to the other side of the table. We'll come back to this side in a moment, but right now we're going to talk to Grayson about it. How you see it?
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, Trine, that's an intimidating atmosphere. I had the opportunity to call one of their basketball games last year. I called their region championship against Darlington, and my gosh, I could hear it. It wasn't even football. I could hear them screaming from my microphone, and I could just hear everything, man. They're Trine, they got some crazy fans. But anyways, Temple Temple, they've played a few teams just based on paper. They're not the most quality wins. Tryon, they've already played their rival. They've already played Gordon Lee, and they've already been an overtime nail biter against Dade County, which I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. I think Tron's experience will be the difference maker in this game. You mentioned 4-year starting quarterback. They got a lot of seniors, and their offensive line they've looked pretty good this year. So I'm going to take Tron to win this game.
You know, Grayson, one thing you'll learn, that game was in Trenton, and that's a tough place to play. So give Tryon credit for escaping with a W. Yeah.
Yep.
Anytime you play up there.
So one of the things I'll say about Temple is their coach the last couple of years has been Coach Nix. Coach Nix was at Gordon Central, and while in the win-loss column they didn't have a ton of success, you could see that thing headed in the right direction. And I haven't had a lot of interaction with him, but my perception of him is that he's old school. And, you know, he's going to teach these kids to be physical, that old smash mouth football. And at the same time, he's got some speed and some talent. And these kids are going to get out there and they're going to battle and they're going to play hard and they're not going to be intimidated, even I think with this environment. So I think that bodes well for them to put up a fight in this football game. But to the point that Ian was talking about, with all the experience that you have with this team and the home crowd on your side, and I also think that this year's team, I think a lot of people talking about it going into the year, we're talking about Toby not being there and those sorts of things and how much a drop-off would there be. I think those kind of things give you a chip on your shoulder that you use to your advantage, and I think that's one of the things that they have done. So,
and they're used to winning together. I mean, they got the monkey off their back and won the region last year. They want more.
I agree 100%. Yeah. This is a hungry team, and I think that spells, you know, a recipe for success. Little series history, Tryon leads at 5-1. These teams haven't played each other since 2005. And a little trivia question for you. Who was the coach the last time that these teams played each other?
At Tryon?
At Tryon. I can't tell you for Temple. I didn't write that down.
I'm going to go Coach Hump.
I'm going to go Coach. Well, that's a good guess, but it was Mark Loudermilk, who is the offensive coordinator, you know, over at Darlington now. He was the head coach at Tryon the last 4 times that these two teams played. So there you go. Thought I'd throw that out there for you.
Nice, good trivia.
But we all agree on that one. I thought maybe there was a chance there'd be a difference, but didn't really think so. So no difference on that one.
At least if we all lose those games, I mean, we all could be tied at the end of this.
Yeah,
we got more to go.
We may
got
be
more
before.
to go.
Yeah, there's still some opportunity.
So I said maybe.
I guarantee. I'm going to go ahead and guarantee it. We're going to have a difference at the end of the show today.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go with the Pepperell Dragons heading over to Christian Heritage, a place I've been to several times. Ian, you've been there before, right, or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I've experienced the PA speakers twice. Once with you and once without, I believe. But yeah, man. Whew.
Yeah,
something else.
It's an intense experience up there, and I'll take this one first. I hadn't taken one first yet. One of the things that you can say about Christian Heritage going into this game, they're going to be well coached. Coach Frank Barden's their coach for the last few years. He's not a guy that we need to talk about as far as introduction. Everybody knows what he did when he was over at Cartersville. 7 region titles, a state title. Then he went to a bunch of different schools, wound up the last several years at St. Francis a couple years back, and got them all the way to the semifinals where they lost to Prince Avenue Christian by 4 points. So had a lot of talent there, and he can get the most out of what he's got. There's no doubt about that. Well, one of the things that Christian Heritage has is a senior leader at quarterback, and that's Carter Triplett. He's a dual threat guy, big kid, 6'4". He's listed over 200 pounds. We've seen him play. He's a dynamic athlete, so he's one of those guys that you got to really take care of. Pepperell, they've got some playmakers on this team. I don't know if they have a tremendous amount of depth, but they do have size up front. They've got some good skill guys, experienced quarterback, so they do have some dudes on this team. I think Pepperell's going to get their first win in this one. I think they've got a little more well-rounded attack than you've got with this Christian Heritage team, and so I do think they're going to get this win. But it's been a frustrating start to the season for them because they were competitive, had the weird night against Pickens, and got off to a good start in that game. Weather intervened, then they had to come back the next day. All the elements and everything were stacked against them in that one. That one probably should have been a win in better circumstances. And then they got a good lead over Adairsville, and Adairsville, finally kicked in and won that game. So they've had a couple of tough losses. I think they're hungry. I think they're going to get a win here. We'll go to Ian next.
I mean, look, things haven't gone like as expected for the Dragons so far. They've blown leads in both of their games. The first game, though, you have to look at it in two parts because it happened 2 separate days, almost 24 hours apart. So a very strange situation there, as you mentioned. But they've played good teams. Adairsville's got some great skill players. They're young on the line of scrimmage, but they've got talent. They're just gaining experience, so that's not a bad loss to a team in a larger division. So, look, Christian Heritage, are they coming off of a blip season? They weren't that great last year. Yeah. I mean, and they have been pretty consistent over the years. Will Barton turn it around this year? I think they will be better. It is a tough environment up there, but Pepperell's no stranger to tough environments. I think Sam Ross is the difference in this game. I think his legs are the difference. He scrambles around, extends plays, and the Dragons get their first win. I'm with you. I thought I might be out on a limb there.
All right, 2 for the Dragons. Will it be 3? We're going to find out. Grayson, how do you see it?
I thought about this one just for a little bit because originally my thought process was, Pepperell, they've already blown 2 games. They've had leads in those games, but then I flipped over my mindset and I was thinking, well, at the same time, those are some really great teams. Pickens, they're a pretty good program. Adairsville, they've been one of the most consistent programs over the past few years. They've had a lot of dynamic athletes come out of there. Of course, we know Vic Beasley Jr. came out of there. They've had a lot of college athletes over the past few years there for football. Granted, Pepperell's depth, from what I've heard, they have a lot of guys up front, but they may be 1 or 2 deep just from what I've been hearing. I think that they're going to be hungry. They're really going to want that win. So I think Coach Haywood brings his Dragons into Dalton and they pull out a win. Carter Triple and Tate Crowder, they're a deadly duo, but I just think Pepperell's eagerness to win this game is going to be the difference maker.
All right. So it's the clean sweep there as far as our panel's concerned for the Pepperell Dragons. Skipped over one. We're going to go back and talk about this game, a really important one to us because we're going to be calling it on WLAQ, and we're super excited about the radio broadcast and then also being with our friends from Northwest Georgia Media, Nathan Patterson and his group, bringing that live stream, and we'll have the ultimate coverage of that one, and we're excited about that. So we're going to talk about the Darlington Tigers heading up to Ridgeland, but we recuse ourselves from picking this one since we're calling it. Everybody does that. I was listening to Greg McElroy, one of my favorite college football podcasts this morning, and he wouldn't pick the game that he was calling. So that's what you do.
That's what you do.
But Ian, obviously you were with us last week with the Darlington Tigers, yes. And they were taking on North Cobb Christian, the Eagles. And the first thing that to observe about that game is, when's the last time you saw a better effort than you got from the Darlington Tigers last week in a game where they were playing a number 8 team in the state, just a bigger squad, had 68 kids, and they had some dudes in that team. And the Tigers went toe-to-toe, had an opportunity to win the game, came up short. Yeah. But it wasn't for lack of effort. That's for dang sure.
No. Tremendous effort on both sides of the ball. Pitched a shutout in the second half. The defense played great. There was some serious talent on the other side of the ball. And the grit that we saw from every player on the Darlington roster, led by their quarterback, Sammy Konchesky, just a great effort. Now, we talked with Coach Groves. They want the W. But they don't have to hang their heads after an effort like last week. They felt like they let one slip through their fingers. Now they go on the road to play a Ridgeland team that's 0-2. I hate to say this, but it feels like a must-win week for the Darlington Tigers, and I think that is going to be a rallying cry. They need to go win this ball game to build confidence for the rest of the season, get it done, and I think Coach Groves and his crew will be ready to do that.
No, I would agree. So we talked to him yesterday, said they had a great week of practice. Morale is good. They're going to keep fighting. There's no question about that. And, great performances in the game. One of the things that Coach Groves mentioned yesterday were the interceptions by Miles Twyman and then also newcomer Scholl to the squad. Yeah. Those guys were dialed in, and it was just a great team performance. It was one of those ones where you get to the end of the game, and I know it had to hurt to lose that one because you knew you were so close. But at the same time, you realize that you can compete with just about anybody. Right. So you take that with you next week to a school that's a higher classification, definitely has a bigger roster size and things of that nature. But I'm with you. I think this is a game that should be a winnable game for the Tigers. And I think they're going to get up there and hopefully be able to take care of business. But we're not picking that game.
Right. Just sharing our thoughts.
I almost did, but I didn't. But
Same
anyway, yeah. But we're obviously rooting for the Tigers in this one up there with the Battle of the Panthers. I'm looking forward to going there, too, because I've been by Happy Valley Road, and their stadium there looks like a great facility. They got a 2-level press box. I'm not sure if at the high school level I've ever been in one that's 2 levels like that. Have
Can't
you?
say that I have.
So I'm excited about seeing that facility and hopefully driving back and stopping by the place, Buc-ee's, and get me a celebratory brisket sandwich and a icy and enjoy that on the way back home.
That's right.
And smiling.
That's right.
You know, all that stuff that comes along with it.
Snacks on the way, meal on the way back.
That's it.
That's the way we do it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Cookies on the way, and then but I'm not getting the 3-meat sandwich. I'll tell you that.
No, steer clear.
Wow, it's
Steer
good,
clear.
but it's not road food. That's for sure. Story for another time. But anyway, we're going to go over here and talk to Grayson. We're not picking this one, but give us your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, I watched the live stream there for a little bit. As you know, I was watching Taylor Heineke do the best Falcons quarterback impersonation I've ever seen. So, it was somewhat that of Desmond Ridder, but that's a different story for a different day. But from what I've watched, I mean, it was just a defensive-minded game. I mean, there were a lot of 3-and-outs. Darlington came so close. At the end, the ball went right through Jace Donaldson's hands. That was just a great game. Came down to the final drive, and then North Cap Christian just needed out. But, yeah, that was a tremendous, tremendous game. That was just a great thing to see for Darlington, just to be able to keep it close so far against arguably the higher-ranked team. And I think even though, it's a loss, that's a really great loss to have underneath your belt going into – even region play in some of these other non-region games that they'll be playing this year.
All right, and that was Grayson Atkins, everybody, intern at WLAQ and also interning with V3 this year and doing a fine job, and we appreciate you, man. We're glad to have you here. That's going to put a wrap on this particular segment, and when we come back, we've got some fun matchups to talk about. Adairsville Tigers at Cass Colonels. Boy, those Cass Colonels, they're a team I'd like to see play.
Yeah.
They must be something special. Westminster Wildcats at Calhoun Yellow Jackets and Cedartown Bulldogs at Alexander Cougars. Those are the games we'll talk about in our next segment. In our final segment, we're going to shift over 100% talking about the Rome Wolves going to Carrollton to take on the Trojans, including an interview with head coach John Reid. This week in Northwest Georgia football, brought to you as always by Riverside Auto Group. Let's hear a word from them.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
All right, we welcome you back here to this episode of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, our Week 3 edition of the show. We're going to pick a few games in this segment. And, Ian, some teams the next two that we're going to talk about are teams that have had some success this season and will continue to have success this season. But one of them's got to lose this week. Adairsville Tigers going to Cass. I think we're all going to see this the same.
Look, everyone loves a good Bartow County showdown. That's what we've got with these two teams. Coach Cudd versus Coach Gates. Not a long drive. They both had tremendous success with these programs. Adairsville has had a winning program for a long time. Coach Gates came in and built this thing from the ground up. Coach Cudd has done a great job of continuing Coach Bishop's success. He's been there a long time. The Battle of the Minds is going to be fun to watch in this one. I think it's going to be a chess match out there, but I do believe Cass, with the home field advantage and I think they have an athletic advantage here. Adairsville has some great skill players, but I think Cass finds a way to win this thing, and I think they probably end up pulling away in the second half. That's my guess.
Yeah, I think this is, when you look at Adairsville, very good competitive football team. They're consistently good, but they had to hang on to beat Allatoona, came from behind at Pepperell. To win this game, they've got to play lights out every second of the game. It's got to be the best 4 quarters of football that this whole team collectively has ever played in their life to be able to beat this team because, like you say, Cass, they got the whole package. Big and physical up front with depth, great speed, ability at the skilled positions, and solid quarterback play and a good level of experience, well coached. They're a team that's not going to get out there and beat themselves. They're going to be ready for this game, no question about it. So I wouldn't say there's no way for Adairsville, not a path for them to win. I just don't think Cass leaves them an opening to do it.
Right.
And I'm going to take Cass to win this game. We'll go over to Grayson and see if he sees it in a similar fashion.
So last year, I talked to my good buddy at the Emperor Stadium, Mr. Larry Gardner, and one of the things he pointed out to me about this game is that whenever these teams play, you got to throw everything out the window.
That's kind of true.
It's a rivalry game. It's the battle for Bartow County. I mean, at some point, just the way that talent is distributed, sometimes you just can't rely on that. And they were massively banged up in that game last year. I think some of the skill positions almost 2 to 3 deep in injuries from each of those position groups, and Cass still only managed to win by 17 points, which is still kind of crazy to think about. Cass, they got some guys, Barry McWhorter, Brody McWhorter, Chase Tatum at tight end, Braylon Hill. I mean, he breaks tackles like it's nothing. It's ridiculous just watching them play. And Adairsville on that side, Ethan Long, their quarterback, Trey Winters, Jamarian Pulliam. They got some crazy good receivers, and that secondary, they're really, really, really talented, even on both sides. However, just watching Cass, it's hard for me to believe they're going to lose this many games.
You've seen them with your own eyes, man.
I just think Cass, they're going to beat a fully healthy Adairsville squad. Now they got theirs ridiculous. They can compete with any squad in the state, especially in that classification. I'm going to take Cass to win this ball game.
All right. So we all take Cass. We haven't had a difference yet.
No, we have not.
Well, we have one in this game. I think there is a possibility. We're going to find out, though, and we will go ahead and intro this next game. It is going to be the Westminster Wildcats going to the Reeve to take on the Calhoun Yellow Jackets. Westminster's 1-1. Calhoun comes in 0-1. Series history, Calhoun leads it 3-1. 4 of the 3 games. 3 of 4 games in this series, I had that transposed in my notes, were playoff games. Calhoun won all of those. The only regular season game in the series goes back to 1957 and was a 32-0 loss for the Jackets. I always find it interesting to go to the Georgia High School Football Historian site and look at the history. So in the modern era of high school football, it's all been playoff stuff. So this is cool. The head coach for the Westminster Wildcats, Jerry Romberg, he's coached the Wildcats for 33 seasons.
Wow.
This is his 33rd season, posted a 235-win, 141-loss record with 1 state title. That was in 2015, won 7 region titles. They haven't had a deep run, though, in the playoffs in the last 5 seasons or so. But this is going to be a well-coached team. They're talented. The Wildcats have a close loss to Lovett, close win over Pace. Calhoun lost that close game to Creekview, which is a program that's obviously been on the rise. This one's hard for me to pick, but if you've ever been to a high school football game at Calhoun, it's like a small college atmosphere and is just electric. And so they're going to have the home fans behind them. They've got a lot of talent. They've got an amazing coaching staff there led by Coach Stevenson. And, of course, they've added Tommy Atha in recent times to that staff and a whole lot of other guys that they've got with that program as well. So these kids are going to be well coached. They're going to be ready for this game. They got it at home. So I'm going to take the Yellow Jackets to win. Ian, do you agree with that assessment?
Hey, yeah, I have to agree. The home field advantage being the main reason that I'm picking Calhoun because, look, this is going to be a defensive game. If you look at Westminster's loss and win, it was 21-18 that they lost to Lovett, a good Lovett squad, and then I think they won 17-10 or 17-7 against Pace Academy. Calhoun lost 17-10. I expect this one, first team to get to 20 is going to win. But I do think, again, like you said, Calhoun has an atmosphere that is hard to rival as far as the way their fans show up. It's really like a college atmosphere at that stadium, and I think that will help put them over the top, and the Jackets win.
No matter what happens, the Reeve will be rocking on Friday night. Are any of the I haven't seen any Thursday games this week. Are all these Friday?
I guess so.
Okay. Okay. I tried to look into that. I didn't see anything that was Thursday. I hope we got that right. All right, let's go to the other side of the room and see if it's unanimous.
I'm going to go and talk about Calhoun's atmosphere for just a second. In 2021, whenever they made it to the state championship, I went to the Final Four game where they played Blessed Trinity at home. And now that Westminster's in 4A, I'm pretty sure, they're actually in Blessed Trinity's region. So I got to witness Blessed Trinity and Calhoun play, and man, oh man, they had Reeve rocking. That was the only home game I've ever went to for Calhoun, but they had fireworks going. They had the band playing out in the field. They had the little jacket helmet where they introduced everybody. And man, oh man, that was a great, great environment. Calhoun, they're coming off of a loss. Westminster, they just played one of the two biggest rivalries in Atlanta. It's Lovett and Pace Academy. They played both of them in back-to-back weeks. I'm going to go Calhoun here. Something just tells me Calhoun's going to find a way to pull out this game after playing a solid Creekview team.
All right.
Close.
Yeah.
I think we all think it's going to be a good ball game.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I definitely think this is going to be a close game. One more to pick. In this segment, we got two more to pick, but we'll get to the other one in our last segment of the show. But we're going to talk about the Cedartown Bulldogs hitting the road to take on the Alexander Cougars. Series is tied at 1 apiece. The only two meetings were in 2018 and 19, so we hadn't seen this one on the schedule in the last few years. And we will go over to Ian to pick this one.
All right. I see this one similarly to our last game that we talked about. This is a good Alexander Cougars squad. I might see it a little bit different.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah,
a little bit.
I don't think Alexander's as good as Westminster by any question, but I just think that Cedartown had a gap year after that close call, the heartbreak of being so close. And in this guy's opinion, they should have won. Had there been replay, they would have won. So missing out on that state championship and having to replace some upperclassmen leadership last year, still a great team last year, but now they're older. Those guys have stepped into those leadership roles. And I think Jamie Abrams has got himself a juggernaut once again, especially on that defensive side of the ball, man. These guys are going to knock your block off, and I think they do that to the Cougars. They go on the road. Alexander's going to be lucky to get on the scoreboard.
And to your point on the defensive side of the ball, Cedartown in 8 quarters of football have given up 1 touchdown. And 4 of those quarters were against Rockmart, which I know they've kind of struggled a little bit. But they're a good football team, and to hold them, to 7 points in that game, it means something. There's no doubt about that. So the Bulldogs have shown that once again they're a team. They're going to make you earn every single inch. They're going to get out there and just grind on you all game. And I think that's going to be a problem for Alexander in this game. They missed the playoffs the last 3 seasons, haven't won a playoff game since 2016, only won 2 games last year. I don't know anything about their roster, but based on how things have gone the last few years, I do think they're a good program, but I think they're going to struggle against Cedartown. So I'm going to take the Dogs in this one. And maybe Cedartown just gets out there and controls, the line of scrimmage and the ball. And Alexander doesn't get a lot of possessions in the game. It may be low scoring, but I think in some respects, Cedartown takes control of the game somehow. So we agree on that one. And now we're going to get the opinion of Grayson Atkins.
Cedartown, once again, they play a basketball school. They played Berkmar last week, and I know it's football, but they're playing some basketball schools because Alexander made it to the state championship 2 years in a row. They lost to Etowah last year in the state or Riverwood last year in the state championship. And the previous year they beat Lee County in the state championship for basketball. So Cedartown got to play basketball school. This is football, so you got to toss all that out the window. Cedartown, they may be playing on the road at Alexander. But I don't care. Give me Cedartown. They're going to win this one.
All right. We got one more game to pick and to talk about. That's so right. What we're going to do, we're going to tee this up. Ian's going to tee this up for us, and then we'll take a break and we'll come back with the interview that coincides with the last game that we're going to talk about.
That's right. When we come back from this break, we will hear from Rome Wolves head coach John Reid.
All right. We'll be back.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
All right, we welcome you back into This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. And as we've told you the last couple of weeks, each week we're picking a game of the week. And some weeks that can be a little bit difficult to do, but this week was not one of those weeks. We're going to be talking about a big matchup that people have been talking about for a long time, and that is the Rome Wolves heading over to Carrollton to take on the Trojans. So, Ian, I guess we'll just kind of launch into our questions here.
Yeah, Coach Reid, we're glad to have you with us. Thanks for taking a minute to talk to us today.
Oh, no problem.
All right, so I'd like to start by saying how glad we are that you, your players, coaches, staff, and anyone else on that bus are safe and sound. You know, that's a lot bigger than football. I know it had to be a scary situation for everybody involved. But did want to talk to you about how that has brought the team together, how you've adjusted your preparation with the delayed start to the season to get ready for this big matchup.
Well, you know, it's yet to be seen as far as it brought us together in the form of good football wins, but I'm sure it brings soul and stuff like that, so that'll never be forgotten. As far as the incident, we're just very lucky that hopefully at some point in time every kid that was in there will be in full strength, and that's a miracle. I've seen the bus video, and a lot of people will never see the inside of the bus camera, but that bus rolled 3.5 times in less than 2 seconds. So it was enough of that, but it was truly not something I would want to do again.
Well, Coach, anyone who follows high school football in the state knows Rome and Carrollton are elite programs, and, of course, you've battled them in region and non-region play for years now. And really, there have been some classic games, and it's one of those matchups that fans, you know, we really get excited about, want to talk about a lot. So we wanted to get your impression of their program. And then also another question along those lines would be, you know, I think that us fans sometimes throw the word rivalry around a little bit too much, maybe use that a little bit too loosely, but would you consider this a rivalry game from the coach's perspective?
Well, I'll start with that. You know, we got here in 2015. I think we took over a team that was 2-8, hadn't won a region championship or anything, and we really didn't have a rival. I ask around, who do we not like? And as soon as, and I don't mean not like as far as you know I'm talking about on the field. Who do you look forward to? You know, so forth. And as soon as Carrollton got on the schedule, I think it became an immediate rivalry. And what I thought was neat about that at the time is it was, you know, one county against other counties. You know, we were representing Floyd County and they're representing Carroll County, and that's what made Georgia football. And I think over the years that's changed a little bit with, you know, the additions that they had to their roster. So, you know, we're still, you know, pretty much homegrown, and so it's still a rivalry as much as one team versus another. And I think it's been a team versus team deal where we went on, won some state championships and so forth. I think they're still striving to do that. So it does put, and our kids and their kids both definitely want to win in the game, as what do the coaches.
Well, you know, Coach, you have a well-established tradition of playing some really tough non-region schedules. I know some of that's because you've had so much success; it's hard to get matchups. But you know, you always play some really, really tough games. So I know you're no stranger to tough environments. But how do you prepare your team differently? Carrollton's got a really big stadium, almost like a college stadium atmosphere. How do you prepare for the tough environment you're going to face on Friday night?
Yeah, some of the biggest things are talking about itinerary leading up to it with kids, and try to keep it normal as possible as far as eating and traveling and so forth in the locker room. Their locker room is decent, so it's not like some of these terrible situations where it's not enough room for your kids and not enough bathrooms and all that. So that's decent. So you take care of that. Really, as far as crowd and stuff like that, our kids, there's nothing you can do about it. And we really don't mention it. Last year, we knew Thomas County was going to be loud because these illegal noisemakers they brought in, so we played loud music all week. But I think being game one, we haven't played a game yet, and that's the biggest concern I have is they've played 2 games. They're a great team, so that's going to make it the biggest thing. And so I don't want to add too many things. I mean, I don't want to add noise and all that to the kids' play because, it's a big enough deal to just get our calls right and not mess up, make our own mistakes.
We've got Coach John Reid with us, head coach of the Rome Wolves, getting ready for a big matchup this weekend against Carrollton on a road. First game of the season for the Wolves. And, Coach, when it comes to personnel, let's talk a little bit about the Trojans from that aspect, looking at their roster and then seeing this team on film. Who are some of the guys that catch your eyes, and then what do the Wolves have to do to slow them down as much as possible and have an opportunity in this game?
Well, I think I've alluded to that a little bit earlier. They've got this quarterback as far as one of the better in the country, and then they've got some new kids in the secondary, and they've got a kid out of Idaho that's really quick, and so it's hard to keep up with it at times. And our coaches have reported, hey, this kid just transferred, and so forth and so on. So they do have some great additions to their team, not only in the secondary but at receiver and different positions on the field. So, they'll be as tough as they ever have been.
Now, we also know you have plenty of big-time talent on your roster, homegrown talent, as you mentioned. But who needs to step up for the red and gold, and what are the keys to this game if you're going to go on the road and bring home a win?
I think we have to have success on offense, and not only in the running game, but the pass game, the screen game, and so forth. And it's always got to put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and he's definitely got weapons to use there. And there'll be some kids that people didn't know about and that'll have a good seasons for us and so forth. We got 2 experienced running backs, and their offensive line, regardless of coming back or not, they've got to, experience or not, they've got to work together as 5, and then we're waiting to see that. And sometimes it takes some games, and this is not, just late in the start. It's almost Labor Day, not getting to start early. It's be very difficult to make sure. We've done the best we can at practice to make sure we get those type of situations where you've got the game type situation where you get to work together. Defensively, we've got to make up for the loss of some good defensive linemen, and we're going to have to be moving up front and quick with some very aggressive kids.
Again, we're about to wrap up here with Coach Reid, but we just want to take an opportunity here to thank you so much for giving us some time to talk with us about this matchup and getting the season cranked up, and wish you the best of luck on Friday. Any final comments you'd like to offer our listeners as you guys get ready to embark on for the road trip and get the season cranked up?
No, I appreciate the chance to get on here, and then you guys supporting high school football, and it's like the hardest thing in the whole season to get the season started. It's been extra long, the most stressful part, I guess, is getting this done. It's been extra long for us, so we're ready to get started and go against a really good opponent and see where we're at and give us the idea where we can be this year as we get closer to region play.
Well, Coach, I can say it proudly as an alumni. Go Wolves. Hope we bring home the W.
We'll try to do it, Ian.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
See you.
That was Coach Reid, everybody, of the Rome Wolves. And, of course, the game that we selected as the game of the week this week is the Rome Wolves traveling to Carrollton to take on the Trojans.
That's going to be a barn burner.
And, of course, one of the plans, Ian, was to have both coaches for this particular episode of the program, but it doesn't look like we're necessarily going to be able to do that this time around. Huh?
Yeah, we're still working to try to get Coach King scheduled, but he had some conflicts, so we'll see what we can do there. But I'm so glad we had time with Coach Reid to get his insight on a big-time matchup.
And again, we wish the Rome Wolves the best of luck in this game and the rest of the season. And I would imagine, Ian, and we didn't really talk to Coach Reid about this, but this is one of those situations in light of everything that they've gone through, just to get the season going. Can you imagine the relief it's going to feel just to be out on the field and get this game going?
Right. I mean, you heard him mention the bus rolled 3.5 times in a matter of seconds. I mean, how terrifying was that, and how fortunate is it that everyone walked away from that, even though there are some that are still recovering from those injuries. So, that's a heck of a shakeup to deal with, and you miss your first game because of it. And now you get to open up with one of the best programs in the state. But I promise you, if there's one program that's ready for it, it's Rome High.
That's exactly right. Well, that's going to put a wrap on this segment. We're going to take a break and have one final segment when we come back to wrap up this episode of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. We'll return after these messages from our sponsor, Riverside Auto Group.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
All right, we welcome you back one more time to This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. Our time's pretty much done, so we're going to make this quick. We'll start with the alum. You mentioned that in the interview there with Coach Reid. We really appreciate his time. Always enjoy having an opportunity to talk to him about football. Always gives you a great interview, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. Yeah. He does indeed. And well, I guess it's time for us to pick the game of the week.
Let's
Rome at Carrollton. Yes, the Wolves have not played a game yet. Yes, the Trojans have a quarterback named Juju. Pretty big deal. Yes, they have home field advantage. I don't care. Wolves, go on the road, shock the world. Go Rome.
All right, let's go to the other side of the table. Grayson, how do you see it in 30 seconds or less?
Yeah, I mean, even Coach Joey King said this on the GPB interview that he did, giving a John Reid-led team a few weeks to prepare. It's always going to be dangerous. However, since Mr. Juju Lewis, Mr. USC commit, has been there, they haven't beat them. Carrollton already has 2 games played against Woodward. They made it to the state championship in 6A last year. I'm not saying the Rome isn't going to keep it competitive, because they sure do have the talent to keep it competitive and the depth. They have a few D1 commits, but Carrollton, they have a lot of talent outnumbering the Wolves in terms of that. I'm going to go with the Carrollton Trojans. Fight on.
All right, and I will get the last pick here and see which way this thing is tilted in terms of our panel. And what I will say about this, you talk about the unknowns of Rome since they haven't played a game this year. My thought on that is maybe that's an advantage, because there's not a lot of film for Carrollton to look at and prepare for on Rome's side, because obviously you have the scrimmage at Rockmart, but things are a little bit different in a scrimmage type situation. And so maybe that's something you can work towards your advantage. You're always looking for whatever angle it is, in order to be ready for the game. But at the end of the day, man, there's no doubt that there's a lot of talent on this Rome team. And if there's one thing we know about Coach Reid and his coaching staff, is they're going to come into this game as ready as possible with what they have, guns a-blazing, and throw in the kitchen sink at the Carrollton Trojans. There's no doubt about it. They're not going to come in here intimidated the situation and, hearing all the picks and looking at all the analysis and things of that nature. They're just going to get out there and play football. At the end of the day, I think the Rome Wolves are going to be ready for this game, and they're going to shock a lot of people, because everybody that I hear from and look at the media and things like that, they're going to pick Carrollton, except for Ian. Grayson went with Carrollton. I'm going with the Rome Wolves as well. I think they're going to go.
The old versus young again.
It is. It's paid off so far. Maybe it happens again this week.
Well, luck of the draw.
And certainly wish them the best of luck. And,
of course.
I think we can say, since we're here in Floyd County, as was duly pointed out there in that situation, I don't have any problems with saying where my rooting interest lies. I hope the Rome Wolves can get it done.
Absolutely.
I really do.
And even though I'm rooting for, not rooting, even though I have Carrollton winning, I sure would not be shocked if Rome's able to pull off a tremendous upset. I think they definitely could. I'm certainly holding my fingers together.
All right. Well, just want to go ahead and reintroduce our panel as we wrap up. Grayson Atkins, intern with WLAQ and V3, Ian Griffin of V3 and WLAQ Sports. And then I'm Matt Davis with WLAQ Sports, and we appreciate you tuning into the show. Want to take one more opportunity to thank Coach Reid for agreeing to do our interview, and all the coaches that have done it so far.
Absolutely.
You know, like we said before, we've talked to several guys throughout the season so far, and it's really been a great addition to the show. We appreciate their time. Well, we're going to go ahead and send it back to a break, and then bid you adieu. This has been another episode here of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football Week 3. Come back next week for Week 4. It'll be at 2 o'clock on Thursdays, as it is every week. Hope you guys hope guys and girls out there, everybody has a great weekend. Hope your team wins, and we'll talk to you and see you next time here on This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. Have a good one.
This has been another edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, brought to you by Riverside Auto Group and produced by WLAQ Sports. We appreciate you tuning in and invite you to tune in again next week. Please like, share, and subscribe.